What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zephyr, and today I am bringing you an update to Dark Worlds, but this time it's going to be on a very tidy budget. Thanks to the Rarity Collection, we've been able to get some staple cards reprinted and accessible like never before, including a very important card for this deck, which is Triple Tactics Talents. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. If you want to see more Dark World content, make sure you get the video above 50 likes in the first 24 hours and I will bring you more versions like this. With all of that out of the way, I'm just going to dive headfirst into the profile, show you what we've got, and we'll talk about the prices as we go for all of the cards not included in the original structure deck. So we start off with pretty much on the standard lineup on all of these is 3 Snow, 3 Genta, followed by 3 Rainbow and 2 Grepher. Now, in my opinion, this ratio is staple. I do not see any Dark World build that would play any different ratio for these particular cards, and I can't really understand why you would want to, apart from if you were playing an additional engine and you wanted to cut some of these down. But in a pure Dark World build, this, in my opinion, is exactly what you should be playing. The next card is obviously subjective to dependent on your playstyle and if you like it or not. I personally still really like playing 1 gold. I do it in most of my profiles, and the reason for that is the exact same reason you play Gen and Ken, is that you like the option to be disruptive, but you also like the option to be defensive. So if I'm going to play the go first hand rip option of silver, I also want to play the go second board clear option of gold. So gold, for those of you that are unfamiliar, has the effect that if it's discarded via opponent's effect, it lets you destroy 2 cards your opponent controls, whereas silver makes them put 2 cards from the hand back to the bottom of the deck. So you've got the hand loop, but you've got the defensive option, and then you've got the aggressive option. Then the final one of it is, of course, Ceruli. 1 is perfectly fine in my opinion. The more and more I've tested this, the more and more I've realized 1 is all I need for Ceruli because of Ken and Gen. So leading into Gen or Ken, you're going to get the ability to help you consistently make a hand rip. And the idea behind Ceruli is that if you want to get to it, if you want to complete the hand rip, you search it out. You don't want to be seeing this card going second, in my opinion. Yes, if you do see it going second, it's not the end of the world because you can Ceruli and then gold or Grepher it to be destroyed. But going first, the idea is give them Ceruli, stop them from being able to use Imperm, Lightning Storms and Evenlies, while also ripping away their hand bit by bit. Moving on to the dangers, so you've got double Nessie, so obviously this got a reprint in the Red Dragon Archfiend structure deck, so it's very, very cheap and easy to get hold of. Then, of course, we've got double Mothman. Again, this was reprinted in the Dark World structure deck, followed by Thunderbird and Bigfoot, as well as 1 Jackalope. Now, Jackalope got the reprint in the Red Dragon Archfiend structure deck again, so you can be able to pick up commons incredibly easy. And if you want a foil version, it did just get reprinted in the Rarity Collection set as well. Bigfoot and Thunderbird have both had structure deck reprints as well, and they are subjective. They are obviously more effective going first than they are going second, because if they do get discarded going first, you're not really going to be doing a lot, unless you're going to try and use Bigfoot's effect to destroy the Ceruli or the Ken or the Gen that you've given your opponent. All really, really cheap, all relatively budget to pick up as well. Speaking of, the now namesake staple normal summon of the deck is the Gen and Ken engine. I finally was able to pick up a 3rd Gen. I believe sometimes this was crazy, like I think people were trying to sell playsets for like £5, but you can very easily pick these up from the junk common box at your local environment. Some people will know that they want to keep them, some people don't, they just chuck them in because it's just common bulk. But this normal summon engine is absolutely insane for the deck. So again, for those of you unfamiliar with this, these were 2 exclusive commons that came out in Age of Overlord. Very cheap, very easy to pick up. And the reason you play a 3 and a 1 is you want your normal summon going first to be Gen, because that will then special summon out your Ken. And Ken gives you the ability to draw 2 and ditch 1. The best thing about that, and the reason where you focus more on the Gen than the Ken, is the deck naturally already has ways to hand rip, but also when you're trying to go for that balance of going first, going second, you don't want to clog on the Gens. You don't really want to normal summon your Ken, use his effect to summon the Gen to your opponent's side of the board, and then Gen will make your opponent discard a card, because if they don't have cards in the hand, you're not really going to help for that. There are ways when you're going first as well, when you're playing stuff like Yugioh and, of course, a Cassette Magician to return Ken to the hand, then use your Skuldred in order to special summon down the Ken, trigger, give your opponent a Gen, and not only will you get the discard and draw when you used it the first time when you normal summon Gen, but you'd also get the ability to use Ken's effect, a special Gen from the deck, and then rip one from your opponent's hand. So you're getting the best of both worlds. It's not something you want to focus on, but it is something that your normal summon of Gen to give you those trigger effects of your Dark World is absolutely insane. The best thing as well that you need to remember is that Ken is your opponent activating that monster effect, which means all of your Dark Worlds get the secondary effect. This card, literally Ken's summon effect, is Dark World in the name. Like, I would not have been surprised if I saw Ken in a Dark World Grepher armor. I would have been like, yo, new Dark World card. Even though it's not technically named Dark World, so it's not searchable, it still does everything that the deck wants it to do. The final monsters that I am playing is the one Blackwing Zephyros Elite and the one Salamander Catalyzer. Again, this is subjective. It's entirely up to you if you want to play them or not. The way I see this is with Zephyros in the graveyard, it gives you the ability to recycle a danger so you can use it again, while also giving you a level 4 capability for your rank 4 access. Catalyzer, again, I just really like the option that this can become technically any level in your deck as long as there is another themed monster of that level, as well as also being able to trigger itself or treat itself as a controlled danger. What I mean by that is it allows you to choose what you are going to discard rather than a danger relying on your opponent to reveal. Sometimes your opponent is just on a sniping streak and they're just hitting every danger you reveal one after the other, and you kind of want something like Catalyzer to go, you know what, I've had enough of this. I'm just going to discard the exact card that I want, whether it be Snow, whether it be Genta, whether it be Rainbow, Silver, Gold, you name it, you discard it, you get exactly what you want. Moving on to the spells, again, all of this pretty much like commons from Age of Overlord, reprints in structure decks. These are the only two cards that didn't really appear in a structure deck, but this was a common, and then this is also, I believe it can come in common as well, but you can pick this up really, really cheaply. So at the moment, you've not paid anything more than like 3 structure decks worth. Moving on to the spells, I am playing 2 Gate. Now this is all down to personal preference. Some people like to play 3. I have always from day one played 2. I've tried to test it at 3, really not liked it, just because it gets too cloggy. Like if you see Gate with no way of getting a Dark World or a Fiend to the graveyard, it's completely dead, which is why I really do stick with 2. I think 2 is more than enough. I want to see Genta. I want to be able to use Genta to discard to search it. I don't want to hard open this card. There has been a couple times where it's like, okay, cool, I've opened up Genta, I could loop it around so that I get 3 versions of the Gate, but to me, those scenarios when they popped up really weren't worth it. The 1 Archives, the 1 Accession, all straightforward on that one, and then the 1 Corridor. Now in this version, as it is budget, I would really like to try and push to a second one. However, Corridor is £15 on its own. This is the first single card that makes you go, what? Why? It was originally a £10 card. The hype has gone up now that we know when Colourless is coming out, and that is due in the Maze of Millennia, which is due in January of next year, I believe. But considering in other builds as well, when you are not restricted by budget, you are playing Triple Tactics Thrust in order to search you out your Dark Corridors, you kind of want to be playing it at 2 in this version. But like I said, to try and keep this as a budget restricted build and have more consistent and more powerful, just generic cards, I opted to not pay the extra £15 or to not add the extra £15 to the total budget of the deck and keep it at just 1 copy. Then of course we've got the 1 Card Destruction, followed up by 3 Drag Down to the Grave. So these all came in a structure deck, so you're very good and easy. And the reason I've got the Drag Down to the Grave is if you were not restricted by budget, you could play stuff like your Triple Tactics Thrust as well. But the idea is with Drag Down, it gives me that ability to hopefully see what my opponent is playing, have a look at their hand. If they've got something like a Droll or a Nibiru or a hand trap that will hurt me later on down the line, I will take it out of commission. Keep in mind as well that when you're activating something like Drag Down, the best thing about dangers is they don't really hit a point that can be impermed or stopped with something like an Effect Veiler until later on in the turn. That's when you get to stuff like your Saruja, your Muckraker, Appaloosa, stuff like that. So being able to see an imperm or a Veiler early doors, you can get rid of it before it becomes an issue. Obviously, it's a little bit specific because you want to then reveal your hand with a hand of cards you want to be discarded so that your opponent discards them and you're like, yeah, cool, I'm going to gain some form of advantage. But you could also very easily take one of these out for a brow if you wanted to, just to kind of replace that draw factor. But I like getting to this as early as possible, seeing my opponent's hand. If they draw into a Draw Unlock Bird, so be it. That's just the way it is. But the idea is I get to see full knowledge. I know what I'm playing around. I know what I need to deal with, and it's a great option. Another card that gives you full hand knowledge but is incredibly cheaper to pick up now is double, triple tactics talents. Now before everyone loses their mind and goes, what, how, that's not budget, technically it is. You can pick up a super rare version of triple tactics talents for about £5 on tier 0 games, and then you use the discount code, you get it even cheaper. So when I'm paying £10 to get a card like this, which is so good for going first and going second, this is one of the very few decks when you're utilizing Ken and Gen where you gain max value from this. Because not only can you use triple tactics talents when you activate your Gen or Ken and use either of the effects to look at your opponent's hand, you can draw 2 new cards, or you could steal your opponent's Gen that you've just given them or Ken and then continue to make your link plays. In my opinion, triple tactics talents is a staple in this build now, especially with the new budget restriction lifted on the fact that it is £5 a copy. It's absolutely insane and a must have. I wouldn't play it free. I think free can get too cloggy, and obviously you want to reduce it down to 1, that's when triple tactics thrust comes into play. But when you're looking at £90 on a single card, you're kind of wanting to look at the cheaper options. The last budget option, which again, thanks to the rarity collection, is a lot easier and cheaper to pick up, is Forbidden Droplet. You can pick up a playset of super rare Forbidden Droplet, heck, even ultra rare Forbidden Droplet from between £10 to £12 as a complete set. So it's entirely up to you if you want to play free. This is 2 flex spots. They can very easily be the Raiden, the interdimensional kaiju. They can be a Lore of Darknesses if you want to. It comes down to personal preference. What I wanted with a deck like this that still already has a lot of gas is I want that ability to still set a card that can be as interactive during my opponent's turn as anything else. More times than not, Droplet may not need to be used, so you can very easily take it out. But the idea is it is such a strong board breaker that whether you're putting this in the main or the side deck is something that you should definitely be looking into when you are going further forward into your builds, especially with the rarity set. Now, I'm not saying the rarity set prices will not go a little bit lower, but when you're getting staple cards on the form of Triple Tactics, Talents, and Forbidden Droplet at the low price of like £4 per copy or £10 for a set in certain scenarios, it is beyond crazy not to pick these up. And it, just as a warning now, if come like a month or 2 in the future and you're like, oh, I don't own Droplets or I don't own Talents, and you've seen this video and they're now £10 a copy, you know, what more could you say? So definitely go and pick these up. These will be like one of the first purchases. In my opinion, definitely for this deck, Talents is the first one I'd be going for to upgrade this deck without a shadow of a doubt. So that's it for the main deck. I will then show you the extra deck and then I'll talk you through the side deck options as well for the deck. So for the extra deck, relatively staple on this one. I don't, again, rarely change this because it all comes down to personal preference on whether you're going to be playing a Synchro version or an XYZ version. So you're going to start off with the main Mac Daddy of the deck, and that is the Grapha Dragon Overlord of the Dark World. Came in the structure deck, relatively easy. Then when you're moving on to your Link monsters, of course, you've got the 1 Underworld Goddess of the Closed World, 1 Appaloosa, 1 World Dragon Zelantis, 1 Saruja Scoldred, Nightmare Unicorn, Muckcracker, IP Masquerena, Cross Sheep, and a Kasich. Now, all of these have had multiple prints. Some are a little bit more difficult to get hold of, but keeping in mind that probably the one that's had the oldest reprint, and what I mean by that is, I think Scoldred's only had like 3 prints. It's had its original secret, it's had its reprinted unlimited secret, and then it had an ultra rare in a set. It's very easy to pick up and very cheap to pick up as well. So you shouldn't be breaking the bank for that, and the rest of the extra deck shown here already is all relatively easy to be pick up as supers, lowers, gold rares, you name it. You're playing like £4, maybe £5 maximum per copy of an individual card. Then onto the final cards for the extra deck are your XYZs. So we've got the 1 Baguska. If you do get drolled and slowed down, but you can make a rank 4, Baguska is the one to go to. Daguerres, because it gives you that ability to trigger your danger, your Dark World, and technically your danger effects by discarding them, drawing cards, you name it. And then it's entirely up to you on these last 2 spots. Again, they are very flexible depending on your play style, but I've gone with the defensive option of Hope Harbinger for spells, and then I've gone for the monster or the general card negation in the form of Zombie Stein. Now, you don't have to play this. It does specifically require 2 level 8 Dark Monsters. I'm not leaning too far into the rank 8s, which is why I'm not playing Coach Soldier, not Wolfbuck, Giant Trainer. And I'm not playing, you could play the number 100 Numeron Dragon plus the number 97 Dragulabon if you wanted to. You have more options available to you for that, which is why these are 2 complete flex spots. They could be more Link monsters if you want access to it. They could be stuff like Access Code, Unicorns, Cerberuses, you name it. It's entirely up to you. What I tend to look at is, do I prefer to play some rank 8s or rank 4s, or would I prefer to play some Link 1s or 2s or 3s or 4s? Entirely up to you. The flexibility is there. take this list, adapt it to your own personal playstyle. These are not staple cards, they are all stuff that can change. If you go to a local environment where all they're playing is Unchained, you might want to put an Abyss Dweller into the extra deck as well, just to give you that option to deal with that matchup. So that's it for the main deck, that's it for the extra deck. Heck, even for the side deck, you can still build it on a relatively tidy budget, again, thanks to the Rarity Collection. So what type of cards will you be looking for when you're trying to build your side deck? Well, one of the first ones that I always go to is the card Evenly Matched. The reason I go to Evenly Matched is for the pure fact that it's probably one of the best all-round board breakers. Yes, you do need to negate an opponent's board. That's where Droplet comes into play, or of course something like darkworld and no more. And that is completely up to you on which one you would want to play. So, when you're looking at the side deck, I'd be looking at stuff like Nibiru, relatively easy and cheap, just got reprinted in the Rarity Collection set as well, if you needed more of a reason to go out and buy it. You could look at stuff like your Lightning Storms, again, which also just got a nice little reprint. However, I tend to kind of stay away from Lightning Storm as an all-round option, and I tend to go more for something like when I find it, Lightning Storm is an option, but I tend to go for Harpy's Feather Duster and Cosmic Cyclone. Again, all relatively cheap and easy to pick up. You should be able to have copies of these as you see fit. The other cards, as I've mentioned before, are of course stuff like Book of Eclipse. And I could have sworn Droll and Lockbird was in the Rarity set, but I haven't actually seen any Droll and Lockbird. So if Droll and Lockbird is not in that set, then you're going to be looking at the rares, which is a little bit more expensive, but it will come down to the local environment and if you already have access to it. I think the rares are like £5 to £7 a copy, so you could kind of yeet that out of your selection process if you wanted to. Other options I like looking at is Deep Barrier, Dark Hole, and then of course stuff like Artifact Launcher, again dependent on your local environment. Side decks always comes down to the local environment that you're taking it to, the type of matchups you're expecting to face, and then your personal playstyle and what you have access to. Pretty much everything shown here has all been reprinted recently or reprinted at a lower rarity or in the Rarity set, so it's a lot easier to pick up as you need. So that's it for the profile. If you do have any questions at all, by all means, please put in the comments down below. I will be more than happy to answer them for you. The best thing about Darkworld Dangers is that you can adapt them as you see fit. You make it match your playstyle. You can be aggressive, you can be defensive. I've shown you versions with Synchros orientated, Fusion orientated, heck, even the Chimera engine if you wanted to go down that route as well. But this is the updated budget version. This kind of shows you how you can build this deck without breaking the bank like no tomorrow. The deck is very, very fun, very competitive as well, and it all comes down to what you have access to and how you decide to play it. But for now, as absolutely always, stay safe and of course, happy dueling.